welcome to episode 5 of Fast and Loose, a knitting podcast with me, Stephanie Earp. I'm an independent knitwear designer and talkative lady living in Montreal. And yeah, this is my 5th episode. For those of you who are tuning in again and have seen previous episodes, you'll notice we have a change of location. We have moved up from the basement into the living room. The immortal words of Tom Cruise, we are lords of the living room. So I think the plus side of this is that there's a little bit more natural light, although it's a bit of a dark and stormy day here. But the sound quality might be a little bit not as great since we might hear a little bit of street noise. Although if anyone decides to rebuild their porch today, I'd be very surprised since it's very, very blustery out. So yeah, here we are, episode 5. It is November. I have actually already filmed this episode once, and man, it was gold. It was really funny. But unfortunately my phone freaked out and the data was corrupted, and I spent 2 days on the Google forums trying to figure out how to fix it, and one factory reset later, my phone works, which is what I used to film, and I have my photos back, but I did lose all but the last 10 minutes of, like I say, comedy gold. And I had already frogged something that I showed in that video because I thought it was all safely uploading to the cloud. So I'm going to try and recreate it the best I can. I don't know, I'm trying to see this as an opportunity to do a better second draft. So this week, or this month, this episode, the design that I'm talking about, that I'm featuring, is my Flying V, which is right here. Yeah, I think I released this about 6 or 7 months ago. It was definitely in the spring. And it was inspired very much by the yarns that I used in this version. So, as some of you may know, I work at Espace Tricot in LYS here in Montreal, and then we did like a pop-up with Stephanie from Asylum Fibers. So she came with a bunch of her yarn, and then we did like a little knit night with her and staff, and some of her friends who'd come with her. And it was just really cool to get to know her. She's an amazing musician. We talked about rock and roll and opera. And I went home with some skeins of her yarn and ended up designing the Flying V. So yeah, Stephanie likes to use, she has a kind of a cool naming convention for her yarns. It's all about sort of the woman in the madhouse, very Jane Eyre-ish, Sylvia Plath-ian sort of thing. And at the same time, I was watching Jessica Jones when I was designing this. I was thinking about Jessica Jones as the character, what she would wear, and knowing that Kristen Ritter herself is a knitter was doubly inspiring. In fact, I think I tried to Instagram message Kristen Ritter with a picture of this. So, hey Kristen. Anyway, so here's the Flying V. This is my long sleeve sample, and it is worked in Asylum Fibers Solitary in the colorway Transorbital, which is here in the middle, and Vacant Stare, which is the kind of grayish black on the sides. And the way that this top is constructed is actually worked side to side. It's just 2 pieces, a front and back, and it's worked side to side. So you start at one end of the sleeve and come this way, and then you do a nice cast on, and you come across here, and then the middle section is worked with a series of short rows. The back is pretty much the same, although it's a slightly different neckline in the back, so you get a little bit of a higher neck in the back. And just for fun, I sort of changed up the way I striped and added a stripe here that sort of gives a little spine effect, I think. And then also it's a dropped hemline in the back, so it covers your butt a little bit, which is always nice. And there you go. So a few things about this design. I realize now that it's very much sort of modeled on me and my figure. Just that I have quite broad shoulders, not very much going on in the bust region, and sort of a slim waist, and so does this top as written. So when I published this design, I did a little prize packet where if you bought the pattern, you were entered to win a kit either from Stephanie at Asylum Fibers or from Annie at Knitting It Up, because I did another sample in her yarns, which I'll show you in a second. And my winners both sort of expressed interest in modifying this pattern because they didn't think based on the schematic that it was going to suit them. So I went back to the drawing board and sort of added a modification guide to this pattern that allows you to sort of take this waist shaping, which is built in, right? Like, it's because this is all short rowed, where there's more up here than there is down here. It would make it difficult to add waist shaping. So I went back and and added some information about how you could add some short rows down here in the black section to make this more of a square, without losing this nice triangle shape, which is obviously meant to, you know, emphasize the waist and try to make it look slimmer and all that stuff that we all like to do. But the other question that I got a lot was about the neckline, which is obviously quite wide. I mean, you can see it's even on the mannequin, sort of wanting to fall down a little bit. It certainly sometimes slides off even my broad shoulders. And that was a much harder modification to really do. And the reason why is that I really wanted to avoid having to write a super complex pattern where you had to manage short rows at the same time that you were managing neckline decreases. So the way it's written really is that like you sort of manage this drop before you get into any serious short rowing, and the same on the other side. So the only way to really bring this neckline in would be to combine those two sets of instructions so that they're happening at the same time. And considering over a number of sizes, I just didn't think that I was up for it. I say this like I'm doing you guys a big favor. I didn't want you to have this tough knit. I wasn't sure that I was up for doing all those calculations and writing a sort of usable pattern that also combined all those elements. So it's something to consider if you're thinking about knitting the Flying V, that it does have this wide neck. If you have very narrow shoulders, it might not be suitable for you. Or you might want to wear it flash dance style and, like, you know, show off one of your beautiful narrow shoulders. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. There's certainly ways that you can modify, especially the waist and the bust. You can add some length and, you know, some width in here fairly easily. But when it comes to that neckline, it would take quite a bit of math to change it. It's certainly not impossible, but I decided not to do it. The cool thing about Flying V is it's been out for a bit, and I've seen some really beautiful results. I've seen some people who've knit it in linen to get more of a summer top, which is really lovely. And then I've seen people who have, like me, decided to knit it in a single ply. I love the way single ply sort of tends to glow, the way it takes dye, especially from indie dyers. And it's probably one of my most solid patterns in the sense that, like, the results are great, it's easy to understand, it's well written, if I do say so myself, it's well edited. So yeah, it's just kind of nice to know that if you decide to knit the Flying V, you're probably going to have success. The grading is right, the pattern is right, which is awesome. One of the cool things about knitting side to side too that I think is really cool, especially with these speckles, is the way it sort of changes the way we view speckles. So if you've ever been a little bit nervous about working with speckles, or you've had experiences where they pool in a strange way, hand dyes can do that, knitting side to side might be an interesting option. So you can see here in this transorbital colorway, to me it almost reminds me of like smeared newspaper print or something. Like, so instead of, it's getting a very vertical thing with these speckles, right? So the black stripes are vertical, and it's helping to really emphasize what I wanted to emphasize, which is the vertical line down from the shoulders to the waist. So also, I'll show you my my other sample that I knit with Annie's knitting it up, her single ply base. I think she has a new single ply base called Grace, actually, which has some cashmere and some silk in it that you can get at Espace Tricot, and that would also be an amazing option for this. So this is the short sleeve version. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and put on the mannequin. Okay, Jacqueline, you will be naked. Her name is Jacqueline, with the accent. Let's see. Okay. Let's see here. So you can see with these softer colors, it's a totally different effect. It's not as rock and roll. It's more, almost has like a floral aspect to it. This is the two colors from Annie are called the Crown, which is, I think, this purple here, and Sunday Morning. I might have those two reversed. Sorry about that if I do, Annie. So exactly the same. It's really the same top. It's just with a shorter sleeve. But I think it does really give you a sense of how great this is as a summer top. Like, it is in 100% merino, so maybe more spring than summer, like heat of summer. I don't know, this might be a little uncomfortable. But you can also see with this one how cool it is, the way that this sort of very sprinkly speckle works when it's worked side to side instead of top up or bottom down. Top down or bottom up. And the other thing that's kind of cool about it, I had this version with me at the Twist Festival when I was actually hanging out in Annie's booth with her. And I had a few people stop me wondering if it was machine knit, and I think it's because of the gauge. So one of the cool things that happens when we knit side to side instead of up and down is we more perceive the row gauge instead of the stitch gauge. So in fact, this is fingering weight worked not super tightly, like it's, you know, this sort of, I can't remember if it's 3.5 or 3.75 needles, but it's not like a crazy tight gauge. But of course our stitch gauge is always, almost always, smaller than our row gauge. And so because we're seeing this as a piece this way, it looks very finely knit. It looks like it's, you know, a really tiny, tiny gauge, and it gives this impression of maybe that it's more difficult or more challenging than it really is. And of course, like Elizabeth Zimmerman says, the more you wash and wear your knits too, the more even your tension looks. And I think the fact that I have worn both of these samples quite a bit and had before I brought them to Twist has really helped us even everything out. Everything looks really, really professional on these two. And it has like, the way I manage the seaming is I have a little garter edge everywhere along the seams and at the edges and also under here and at the hemline and the neckline. So you're really not having to do any finishing afterwards except for sewing it up. It's sort of like a self finished piece, and I think that also helps with how neat and tidy it looks, because there's, you know, it's just, once you're done knitting, you're pretty much almost done. You just seam up, you seam here, and you seam here, and c'est fini. So that's the Flying V. And yeah, I knit these in singles, like I said, merino singles. Other people have used, you could definitely use a sock yarn if you want to get something that maybe isn't as prone to pilling. You can use linens if you're looking for a really nice summery top. It's pretty flexible as long as you get gauge. One thing to consider is, I guess, again, like because it's knit side to side, there's drape elements that may change. Again, I've seen it in linen, I know it works. But linen, you know, it sort of wants to slide around a bit. So just make sure that you block your swatch to be sure that you like how the fabric is turning out. Yeah. Flying V. Thank you, Jacqueline. So one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about this episode is that it's about what flatters us. Because as I said, with this design, I had these winners who were a little concerned that it wasn't going to look right on them. And then recently I had an interaction on Ravelry around one of my designs and a tag that I had selected for it. And just thinking about who gets to tell us what looks good on us. So I work in an LYS, and one of the questions I get all the time when customers come in is like, you know, which color? And they'll hold up a color to their face and say, which one looks better on me? And I do this myself all the time. Like when I'm shopping in a store, I'm turning to my colleagues all the time and being like, is this, which one? And often, like, I know what looks good on me. I know I'm 41 years old. I know which colors suit me. But I'm also don't want to knit with the same colors all the time. And I guess the conclusion I've kind of come to is that, especially because we're makers, that we spend so much time with our materials beyond just wearing them once they're all knit up, that, you know, always leading with this idea of we have to choose what flatters us can be kind of limiting. You end up knitting the same shapes all the time, knitting with the same colors all the time. And I don't know, I sort of think we should not worry about it so much. I know that's easy for me to say. Occasionally when I've said that in the store, people have said, like, no, well, you don't have anything to worry about. Which is fair. I had a couple years there after I had my baby where I did think about it a lot more, about what suited me and how I could make my body look different than it was. So I get that a little bit, but I also do think that, like, we need to free ourselves a little bit. Like, I think about living here in Montreal, some of the street fashion I see. You know, people are wearing some pretty wild stuff. The other day I saw a guy walking down the street in, like, dress cuffed floods, bright red socks, and extremely pointy, highly polished black shoes, and, like, his winter coat and an amazing red scarf. And the guy looks like $1 million, and mostly because he thinks that he looks like $1 million. And the confidence with which he's wearing this sort of, to me, somewhat fashion-forward outfit makes you go, oh, wow, he looks great. I guess, you know, dress floods and red socks are in. And you think about how much fashion has changed and our ideas of what is flattering has changed over time. Really, I feel like nothing is off limits. If you love a color, if you love a shape, you should knit it at least once or twice. You know, it doesn't have to be the thing you come back to every time, but I think allowing ourselves to explore colors that don't necessarily make us look like supermodels, I don't think they make us look worse. I mean, that's rare that someone holds up a color to their face and I'm like, oh God, whatever you do, never wear that color. They're out there, but it's not that often. And same with shapes. So like if something like the flying V appeals to you, but you're thinking, I don't know, can I put something this thin around my waist? Is that going to suit me? I don't know. I mean, at least consider it. You could change the length. You can make it longer. You can crop it. You could tuck it in. I don't know. I just think go forth and be free and knit all the things that you want to knit, and don't let anyone else tell you what flatters you or what you can wear. If it's like in your heart, you know, that's one thing. But letting other people tell you, what suits your body or what suits your face, what colors you should wear, I think it's silly. So stop it. That's what I have to say. So next segment, my old knit. So considering I'm wearing my Black Sea sweater, which is like my most recent pattern release, you may say to yourself, how can that be an old knit? And I guess it isn't. Although, I mean, now that I've sort of started adding tech editing and full test knitting to my patterns before I get them out to you guys, by the time it does come out, it is older to me. I've had this sweater now for a while, and I'm doing my best to make it old by wearing it almost constantly. I could really use a couple more sweaters in rotation, and that may seem wild, but I spend a lot of time this summer knitting summery things, and now it's very cold and I don't have that many things to choose from. So this is my Black Sea sweater, my sample that I knit and photographed for the pattern, and it's in Brooklyn Tweed Shelter in the colorway Fossil. And I love it. I love the way it's wearing. I really like that because it is reversible at the back and front of the same, I can sort of vary it, and then I get less wear in my elbows. It sort of allows me to switch them up, or if there's a stain on it, I can put that on the back. But having had some time with the sweater, for sure, I've noticed a couple things. So the whole thing with this sweater is it's very much modeled on the shaping that I used for my 4-score sweater, which is like a very simple 4x4 rib. And I really loved that shape. I loved the simplicity of it and how easy it was to make. And I was always thinking like I should come back to it and try to make it a little more complex, like add some cables, add something interesting. So I have this really nice sort of EXO cable, a real classic style EXO cable up the front. There's some sort of 2-stitch twisted cables here. And in the sleeve, there's also the 2-stitch twisted cable. And the sleeve is kind of an interesting shape that it comes to a point. So it's a raglan, but it's like a really extreme raglan. And when this drops away, you're just using the front and back together to make the neck. But part of the idea with this design is that like there's no picked up stitches, there's no short rows. The front and the back are the same, the 2 sleeves are the same. So if you just knit these 2 pieces 2 times, you have a sweater. So I was wearing this at Rhinebeck at the festival on the first day, and I did notice a little bit that feeling of the back neck being a little bit lower. The breeze was blowing, and I could feel it on the back of my neck and kept sort of like lifting my scarf up a bit. So I think if that's something that bothers you, this design might not be for you, or you could add some short rows to the back neck if you wanted to raise it up. It'd be pretty easy to do that. But there is like something really nice about that simplicity of just being finished when you're finished. It is seamed, although it'd be very easy to convert it into an in the round design. But sometimes I feel like I really like the way seams can sort of anchor a garment. And I love the portability of knitting something flat, that I can bring it with me. I have a little sleeve in my bag and I can just go with it. I'm not hauling the whole sweater around. So a few other details about the Black Sea. It has like more of a bracelet length sleeve as written, although it would be really easy to add length. What you can also see is that there's no edging or ribbing. Like I guess because so much of the sweater is ribbed, you just dive right into the pattern. You can see it down here too on the edge. So I like that too, because there's nothing like, oh, I'm so excited to knit this sweater, and then you're like, and now I have to knit 1 by 1 rib for an eternity before I start the actual thing. So in the case of the Black Sea, you just get up and go. Like you're in it right away. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And what's cool is I had a complete test knit on this with all the sizes, and all but one size was test knit. And it was so cool to see that it really does work across this very wide range of sizes. It goes from a 32 up to a 52, I think. So lots of sizes, and seeing it at every size. In fact, even one of my test knitters knit it for her son, and seeing it on a man was really interesting. I wouldn't, it wasn't my original intention, but it looks good. It works. Like, it's the raglan is extreme, right? Because it's got these 4 ribs in the raglan. And like I said, for me, it's like, I love my shoulders. I love my broad shoulders. It's probably my favorite part of my figure, so I'm always designing in a way that emphasizes that. So on a dude, it's quite extreme, but again, like, winkle pickers and red socks, right? I mean, wear what you want. So yeah, Black Sea is available on Ravelry. And in fact, I'm working on a second sample of it because I was doing it along with my test knitters, which I think I'm going to do that now from whenever I can, because it really helps me be in touch with where they're at. And sometimes I'm like working just a little bit ahead, and I'll spot something before they do, or if they spot something, I'm like, oh, I'm about to get there. I'm going to see how that works out. And it keeps me motivated, and I think it keeps me engaged. It's almost like a cool little like private knit along that's happening to test it out. So here's where I got to with, so far with my second sample. I have my front or back completed, and I'm working on the sleeve. I have like this much of my sleeve so far. Oh, wait, this side. There you go. And it's interesting. So speaking of flattering colors, right? So this is knit in a combination of Briggs & Little, their worsted weight 2-ply, their 100% wool one, and some Rowan Kid Silk Haze. And that's because if you let me loose inside a yarn store, I will go for this sort of peachy, neutral, like pinky neutral, over and over again. Let's make sure you're actually getting to see that. And it doesn't suck, but it doesn't do a ton for me. And I already have a lot of things in this color, like my Sweet Vicious is in these tones. Yeah, I just keep, and I have like way more in my stash too. So it's like, how can I like take it out of this range and put it into something maybe a little bit more classic, neutral, darker, where I'm going to see the cables better. So I grabbed some Kid Silk Haze, and this is in colorway Blustery. So it's sort of a warm, light cocoa brown. And together, they're giving me this sort of very cool, almost marled effect. And obviously the other advantage of using like the Kid Silk Haze, which is a mohair silk blend, is that it's really softening up the Briggs & Little and keeping it a little bit nicer, close to the face. Briggs & Little, I love Briggs & Little. I come back to it all the time. I love that kind of yarn. I love the colors, but it can be a little bit, I think of it more as like for outerwear, like the sweater you throw on top of a sweater. So this is a really cool way of sort of making it more next to the skin. So this is the next size up. I knit the 36, and this is the 39.5, 40. So I'm knitting this one with a little more ease. I'm also off gauge a little bit. It's a little bit big, but I think that's cool. I'm excited to have like a bit more of an oversized version of this sweater, because I do think it's a pretty flexible, stylable sweater. Like you can wear it tight or you can wear it looser. Oh, so I sort of have moved into what's on my needles. I didn't mean to, but here we are. So that's the Black Sea, and now that the test is over and the pattern is out, I admit my motivation to keep going has sort of gone. But I gotta do it because I'm really excited to wear it. And then meanwhile, I'm still working away on my Sipila sweater by Caitlin Hunter of Boylan Knitworks. And I don't have a ton to tell you about it. I mean, the yoke was already done, I think, the last time I showed this one. You can see I've added some length to my body, and I'm continuing to knit on this. It's just like nice, easygoing stockinette. It's been when I can't think about my design knitting, or like when there's only 10 minutes to knit, design that project for the moment. But I have actually added a few, not that you'll be able to see this, but I've added a few sets of decreases in the side seams of this, because this design definitely is a little bit roomy in the bust compared to the sleeves. So I was reading some different Ravelry projects. Some people change the proportions of how many stitches are in the sleeve and how many are in the body. That seemed like a lot of work. So it's like, I'm just going to add a few decreases underneath. And I don't think I'm gonna like increase back out for the waist. In fact, I think I might work it a little bit shorter, a little bit more cropped. And that's kind of also because I don't have a ton of yarn. I have one more skein of my main color, which is Killing Me Softly, Madeline Tosh. And then this is all I have left of my colorwork color, my contrast color, which is also Madeline Tosh, and I can't remember what it is, and I've lost the label. So I'm going to have to do some serious thinking about what I'm going to do colorwork wise on the sleeves, whether I really have enough here to do the full colorwork, but maybe I'll do some kind of little modification. So that's the Sipila. I have a feeling it's going to be on my needles for a long time, and I'll be still showing it to you in little increments every episode for the next year. That's cool. Sometimes that's how it goes. I have a project in my closet downstairs that I've been working on for 5 years. Maybe I'll get that out sometime. That'll be fun. Also on my needles, my Galore. I am seriously stuck on Sleeve Island, but look how beautiful these colors are. I get this in the light. This is Tana's Fiber Arts in her Pure Wash DK. It's all posted on my Ravelry project page of what colors I used. And I'm just like seriously stuck here on Sleeve Island. I'm sort of having moments of wondering why I wrote my own pattern the way I did. It's just maybe a little bit overwritten. So it's like on my long-term list is to come back and look at it and see if there's ways I could simplify it. But I think it's also just like stripes on sleeves, colorwork sleeves, blah. But I really could use this guy in my wardrobe, so I should get motivated and get going because I would love, love, love to wear it. So I know it looks really small, but it's an incredibly stretchy fabric. It's like it's a clingy, ribby sort of thing like I love to do. And it's 5 colors. That's called Galore. And I did a cowl, a knit along on Galore. And I have a winner. The wonderful Rana finished her very beautiful monochromatic sort of whites into blacks. And I have a very cool little prize pack for her. Skein of yarn that I picked up at Rhinebeck and a couple of other little treats that I'm going to be sending her way. Thank you to everybody who participated. I know there's a few people who still haven't finished, like me. Very cool to see these projects going, and I hope to see more as people decide to knit this guy up. So I have one more on the needles thing to show you, and it's a design in progress. So this is the one that I sort of I had, when I filmed this podcast episode last week, I had just gotten down to the yoke and had separated for the sleeves and discovered that I had some issues with my motif placement. I'm going to put on the mannequin again. Jacqueline, you are changing your outfit. Okay. Okay, so this thing, it's like 2 days before Rhinebeck. I have my yarn budget. I'm like, know what I want to buy, know what I want to spend. And I get like an inspiration. I start sketching on a napkin at dinner, and the next thing you know, I have this idea for a sweater, and I go off to the store where I work and spend an absolutely ridiculous amount of money on a whole bunch of Madeline Tosh chunky, because that's what this is worked in. So it's at a gauge of like 4 to 4.25 stitches per inch, so obviously pretty big for color work. And I just kind of knew what I wanted to do. So this circular sort of thing, I sort of stole it from myself from a mitten pattern that I published a number of years ago. And then the bottom, which is in the body here, is also from a mitten pattern that I published a number of years ago. Obviously much modified, but just the idea, the shape, the sort of idea of putting these two together. It hit me and I had to do it right away. But my original, I had to sort of, knit away on my yoke, not really thinking about it. And my original one, you may have seen my little post on Instagram, I'll just show you what it looked like, is that I had it so that the circles fell like this. And that's kind of where I put it on and went downstairs to show Owen, my husband, and he's like, wow, super boobs. Or as my favorite comment on Instagram was, Amazonian battle boobs. So as much as I love the idea of Amazonian battle boobs, I pulled it out and I reknit it and I changed the placement of the yoke so that it's not like, here, check out my nipples. Although these guys are doing that a little bit, but it kind of sits a little lower than that. So yeah, obviously I need to, my next step on this one is that I have to decide what I'm going to do with the sleeves. I think there will be color work on the sleeves. I haven't charted that up yet. They're quite large sleeves because I try to keep them at 16 inches at least to start, so that they could be worked on circular needles in the round. And you can also see exactly where I've kind of blocked to about halfway down this body. I haven't applied my steam to it yet to let it relax. But anyway, it's an inspiration. It just came to me. I think it's pretty out there. I could definitely see it being knit in more neutral colors, maybe in Quince & Co. Osprey or something, in some grays and browns, and being much more chillax. But it kind of brings me back to that idea of what's flattering. Like I don't know that this yellow is like super great on me, but it's the yellow that I needed for these two purples to come out. It's like exactly, it's just what I wanted it to be. And if it washes me out, I don't care. People shouldn't be looking at my face. They should be looking at my amazing color work and my super cool sweater that I designed. So yeah, I'll be working on this for the next little while, and it'll probably be a release in the new year. I'll be looking for test knitters, so if that interests you, send me a message, either on Instagram or through my website. I have a contact form there. It's stephanieearp.com. Yeah. Weird and wacky. I mean, it's not that weird. I don't know, but I love it. I'm totally obsessed with it. It's all I want to work on. Meanwhile, what else did I want to show you? Okay, so I went to Rhinebeck for the first time. It was totally incredible. Way better vloggers and bloggers than me have talked about it, and you should go find some of the things, especially the video that my friend Diana Walla posted. She was my Rhinebeck housemate and my guide and mentor on my very first Rhinebeck experience, and she took some beautiful footage and put together a really professional, gorgeous video about it. So you could go find her. She's papertiger.net or Cake and Vikings on Instagram. But I'm definitely I'm feeling a little bit like the Rhinebeck blues of like, I have to wait a whole other year before we get to do that again. But there you go. Maybe I'll go to some other fiber festival before that, but I feel like Rhinebeck might be one in a million. So, but I did want to show you my favorite thing that I got at Rhinebeck. So I actually did a little video about this and put it on Instagram TV, IGTV. But I'm not sure anybody actually watches IGTV. So I'm just going to do it again because it's so great. So this is a project bag. So I went to Rhinebeck hoping to find a good project bag, slightly larger than the ones I have. I have some really beautiful ones like this, like that my friend Mona made for me. It's so gorgeous. But I do find as a sweater knitter, especially when I'm working on bigger yarns like this, that once I get to sort of second sleeve town, I'm overflowing out of my project bag. So I was like, I'll look for something bigger. And lo and behold, I spot this guy. Obviously, I blinged it up with some good pins. You see those? And it's fantastic. I mean, it is definitely, I said to Diana when I found it that I felt like it was the Tilly hat of project bags. And she didn't know what a Tilly hat was. So I was like, Google an old man fishing, and he'll be wearing a Tilly hat on his head. But, so, it's not the most stylish thing, but it is incredibly practical. And I feel like the inner sort of practical old man in me is so thrilled with this. So as you can see, it's sort of a rectangular bag, quite large, lots of pockets inside. This is one's made out of like a nylon-y thing, and it's nylon strapping. But they do apparently have canvas and leather versions as well. So what's cool about this is it has a zipper that goes all the way around. And it can open all the way up, which means that it can fold down totally flat. So when you're not using it, which I don't know why you wouldn't be using it, it's amazing, you could pack it up and bring it with you somewhere flat. And then the other aspect of that means that you can actually zip it up inside out. So you can just turn it around and re-zip it, and you can see that there's pockets everywhere. I have some pens in here, pockets, 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 everything you could possibly want. And there's even this like cool Velcro one at the very, very bottom, so for stuff that you're really likely to lose, stitch markers, things like that. That's super cool. So yeah, I should tell you the name of it. It's called The Original Nantucket Ditty Bag, and that's bag with 2 G's, FYI. And it was designed originally to be like a tool bag for, I guess, like semi-retired guys who are fixing up their yachts or their summer homes. But it makes a really awesome knitting bag, and I think I was really lucky. I got a screaming good deal on this. I asked how much it was, and in the booth, which was primarily about selling yarn, not so much these bags. She's like, "Oh, $20." I was like, "Okay, I'm in." She's like, "Do you want the rest of them? I have 3. Buy them for your friends." And I did think about it, but in the end, I was like, "No, I would rather spend money on yarn for myself." Selfish knitter. But I'm really, really thrilled with it, and I've been using it a lot while I've been working on this guy. Really cool to be able to just bring it around. It's not so much an outdoor bag, although it has this like knapsacky element. It's not really meant to be a knapsack. I wear it. I mostly just haul it around inside with me. So you know, that's my favorite thing I got at Rhinebeck. I mean, I got lots of beautiful yarn, which you guys will see as they become designs or as they become knits. So I'm not going to get into that now, but I have some posts on Instagram if you want to see what I got. But yeah, that's the thing that I feel like it needed an explanation. Like, why is she so excited about this bag? So just to wrap up episode 5, what else is going on? I have a couple new designs coming very soon. I have a cape design coming out in the middle of November. Worked in Julie Asselin's Les Eaux du Quai. It's really a fabulously luxurious yarn, and I think actually a design that when I originally conceived of, I thought it might be a bit out there, maybe a bit fashion forward, but as it's come out, it's actually really, really wearable, and I'm super excited to share it. And I'm working on a second sample of that now in another color, so that I have lots of ways to show you how to wear it. And meanwhile, I also have another design in the works that's actually in test knitting right now. I showed you that La Bien-Aimée thing in one of my other episodes. So that one is in test knitting, and I'm just running into a few issues with the neckline, so I'm doing some revisions to it. I had originally thought I would do it in early November, but I think I'm going to push it back a little bit just to make sure that I get it right. And much love to my test knitters who are going through this with me. I feel like we're all in the soup together, and I really, really appreciate how hard they're working on it and getting the feedback they're giving me, that they don't hate me right now and they have to like reknit. Maybe they do hate me. I hope not. So yeah, 2 new designs coming up soon. And then, oh yeah, housekeeping. 2 things. I decided that instead of sort of like, I'm trying to professionalize, right? Be more organized. So I decided I'm going to steal a really great idea from Jennifer Steingass of Knit Love Wool, who designs beautiful yoke sweaters. That I'm just going to have a running promotion in my Ravelry store, which is if you buy 2 of my patterns, you'll get the 3rd one for free. So that's just, I've set that up to go for a year. I'll probably renew it in a year if it goes well. So if you like 2, get a 3rd one for free. If you're sort of thinking, oh, maybe that one, maybe you want to wait until there's 3 that you want. But I'm just doing that. There's a code. I'm going to put it on every single one of my patterns so that you can see it when you're shopping. And I'm just going to let that go instead of doing these sort of like 15%, 30%, 1 week, get 1 free. It just feels like I can't keep up with it. And if I can't keep up with it, how can you? And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm trying to build my newsletter list. So I do have a newsletter sign up on my website at stephanieearp.com, but I haven't really been doing anything with it. I went and logged in and was like, oh wow, people actually have been signing up, and I haven't sent one out. So my sort of resolution going forward is that I'm going to start sending out a newsletter that will let you know when I have a new design out, anything that's coming up, when there's a new podcast episode if you're not subscribed, things like that. So if you're so inclined, head over to stephanieearp.com and sign up for my newsletter, which I'm trying to build up. And maybe what I'll do is once I get to, say 50 subscribers, I will send out something special for you guys to say thank you for being early adopters. So yeah, that's it. That's episode 5 of Fast and Loose. I'm Stephanie Earp. You can find me on Ravelry, on Instagram, obviously here on YouTube. I have my website. I'm going to flash all of this up as I'm finishing the podcast, and I just want to thank you for tuning in and look forward to seeing you guys soon. Say goodbye, Jacqueline. Goodbye.